The first thing, ultimately, if you want to get into voiceover, is you have to be a good actor. When I'm reading an engineering e-learning, I'm not me reading it. I have a character for that stuff. My advice for someone getting started is audition for absolutely everything. You have to manage your time super well. You have to deliver consistently. I've literally done national advertisements in a coat closet at my parents' house. You're competing with your yesterday self. The day that you don't have anything new to learn in this business is the day you should quit.
We've had people reach out and say that they're curious about voice acting or about doing this as a freelance job or starting this on the side of a day job. So I've got all sorts of questions. We're just going to dissect how you go about it, how you handle voice acting, how you get gigs, what's the earning potential on all this. So let's just jump right in. I want to get your origin story. How did you get into voice acting?
It was not a straight path. I feel like I'm the guy who fell into the river and came up with pockets full of fish. I've always been interested in recording ever since I was a kid, taping stuff off of the radio and stuff like that. And I started as a musician when I was about 5, but more seriously when I was about 13. Started playing in bands when I was 16 and was very involved with jazz band in high school, that kind of thing. I was also in the honors drama program in high school. And then when I came to college out here in Boulder, I grew up in the LA area. When I came to college out here in Boulder, I was playing in bands the whole time, and then shortly after college got involved in the music industry. I was a lighting guy for bands touring the country and ended up being a producer for some of those guys in their solo projects and playing bass or guitar in their bands. And along the way, I bought a house here, and one of the main reasons for buying the house was to be able to have a place for my bands to practice and to start building a home studio. So from basically when I was 21 and I bought my first little cassette 4-track recorder and trying to figure out how to make drum sounds out of stuff you find in the kitchen, all the way up to having full array of microphones and the whole thing. I've been really just an audio nerd along with being a music nerd and a pretty active session musician, which also kept helping me build up my studio. Eventually, I was playing the game Words with Friends. It's that Scrabble game on the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm a relatively competitive person, so it was attached to my Facebook account. And whenever I would feel like I was, bored with an opponent or felt like I wanted more of a challenge, I'd look at the person who was next ranked above me and start playing them. And so I started playing the woman who was next ranked above me, and we were playing some good games. And after we'd played a few, we started chatting a little bit, and she said that she was a pirate radio DJ on a pirate station here in Boulder. And I was like, that's cool. I was like, I'm in a band. Would you want to interview my band? And I was playing in a reggae band at the time. And she said, sure. So the singer and I went on and we were just doing our interview, and her whole thing was you got to stay for the whole 2-hour show and all that. And I was like, fine, this is fun. And somewhere along the way, I made some kind of smart comment. I don't remember what I said, but the producer of the station, what I said was basically like, oh, I could do this. And the producer said, we can make that happen. And so I had to put my money where my mouth was. And I wound up with a Saturday morning show of my own. Every Saturday morning, and it's pirate radio. Sky's the limit. You can literally do and say whatever you want. And so it was actually a really cool thing for me personally, because I was just getting out of my old career. I really had stayed in it too long, and it was wrecking me psychologically, but I didn't really know why, or didn't really know that it was happening. It took some time. And that radio show really became like my therapy. So it was like the most important time in the week was Saturdays from 10 to noon. And I could play stuff, I could play music, I could play interviews, I could have people on. It got to where my mom would call in all the time and act like she didn't know I was on the air, and she became like a regular guest, which was pretty funny. And through that, I did that for about 1.5 years. And through that, people started to associate me with being on the mic. So it wasn't long after that people started saying, oh, you could get voiceover gigs on this website and on that website. And I was like, really? And so okay, I'd never thought of it before, although I had always thought of voiceover as a dream job. Just one of those things that was like, oh, I'd love to do that, but I have no idea how to even start. I figured you had to be in LA or something like that. And so I was just like, whatever, I'll give it a shot. And I put up a profile on this site and got hired like the next day. And was like, wow, this is pretty cool. And I kept getting hired. And it was one of the smaller freelance sites. It was a great place for me to get my workflows down and all that stuff. And then eventually I started realizing, wait a minute, I'm working for way less than what the marketplace is. And so I stepped up to one of the what they call the pay-to-play sites, where it's like a online casting site where you pay an annual fee and you get access to the world of auditions. And it was just going to work every day after that. So my origin story is really pretty random. Because I had the studio in my house, I just said, fine, I'll try this. And I already knew how to do the audio part, and I just guessed at the rest until I started to see what I needed to supplement my career, and I started getting coaching from all angles. And then it's been the entrepreneur's journey after that. It's just running a small business where I get to wear all the hats, but it's doing something that I truly love doing every day. So I show up and I keep trying, and there's all the ups and downs and the market fluctuations and all the things, and I still stick with it because I love being here.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about how you turn this into a business and kind of where you're at with it today. So you started with smaller freelance gigs, and I imagine you said you got to the pay-to-pay site where you had better gigs, better opportunities. What's it like today? Are you a solopreneur? What goes into starting and running a voiceover business, I guess, is my preliminary question here.
All right. So the first thing ultimately is, if you want to get into voiceover, is you have to be a good actor. Most people think it's good voice. Oh, my friends tell me I have a great voice. That's like a total cliche. Whenever I go to a voiceover conference, it's something that all the voice actors actually joke about. How many times somebody's been like, my friends tell me I have a good voice. Can you get me voice acting gigs? And it doesn't really work that way, especially these days where people want real sounding people. Clients want real sounding people. And what you need is good acting skills. You need to sound like you're just someone talking to another person, connecting with that person. That's for most of the commercial work. And that's actually hard to do when you're reading. It's reading in such a way that you sound like you're having an extemporaneous conversation, but also where you can hear all the words clearly, but not sound like you're over pronouncing all the words. And so that takes some training. One way is just through improv. It's actually what most people say is the best training, is because it requires you to have to make a choice and go with it, which is so much of what the auditioning process is. And it also helps you be able to take direction. When someone says, just do this, you go, okay, I'll do it. You don't think too much about it. You just try the new thing. And you have to learn how to sound like you're not reading, which is one of the hardest skills to learn. It's surprising, but to sound like you're just talking while you're reading, it's really using different parts of your brain. And so it's something that everyone struggles with. I actually remember watching a thing it was with Helen Mirren, and she was giving like a TED Talk type of talk to a group of, I think they were college students, filling up a whole arena. And she walked out from the wings, stood there, and spoke to them. And she just said, I just did one of the hardest things in acting, which was to walk across the stage like myself. And when you're conscious of it, it's hard to do. And when you're not conscious of it, great. But when you're reading something, you're conscious of what you're saying. So it's learning how to do that, as well as the character acting, being able to emote, also being able to do voices if you want to get into video games or audiobooks or things like that. And all of that just requires some training. But at the very most fundamental level, it's being able to read out loud in a way that you feel like you're connecting with the person listening. And more as people consume media in their headphones or in earbuds or whatever, you really do need to sound like you're just talking to one person intimately. Mm-hmm. So that's the first thing, is learn how to act. If you can't do that, then you're going to have trouble. The second thing is to have a decent enough recording setup. You don't need to have a fancy booth like I've got. Matter of fact, this is, I think, the 7th iteration of my voice studio. And I even have a travel one that I can take different places. And everybody talks about how they're able to make like the hotel room pillow fort to be able to record there. I've literally done national advertisements in a coat closet at my parents' house. So it's learning how to do the audio and do it well enough that you don't sound like you're sitting in a untreated bedroom. and have a decent enough microphone. I've got a couple fancy ones here, but there were more treats to myself for meeting milestones along the way. Lots of people do it with just a basic prosumer level microphone. So it doesn't take a lot to get the studio together, but it does take some mindfulness and awareness of what you're doing with how you record. So once you have those two things down, then it's a numbers game. It's like any other sales job where if you've ever had a phone sales job or something like that, it's like how many times can you dial the phone every day and how many touch points can you reach each day? And then there's a conversion rate that's 2 to 3% on those calls. And it's the same for your average voice actor. You just knock out as many auditions as you're capable of during the day. And then depending on what sector you're trying to work in, then you're doing the internet work where maybe you're on LinkedIn trying to find the people that hire for medical narration or the video game casting agents or those kind of things. Constantly seeking training, and there's plenty of resources that are quality resources for that, where you can actually learn what are the ways to basically handle the hustle aspect of your business. How many touch points should you be meeting every day to really have a career? And like I said, I've had sales jobs in the past and it's like the same. And then it's client management after that. It's just be cool, show up, get the job done, be easy to work with. Those kind of things. The basics, and deliver a quality product. The downside to this business when you're starting is that when you get on like a pay-to-play site, you're literally going up against the best people in the world. Every audition. Those people may not have the right voice, but they do have the acting skills to get in the top 10 all the time. So you got to be good and you got to be ready to compete on that level, or completely ignore it and just fully focus on doing your thing. Because your thing can sell just as much. That's a neat aspect of this, but you can't be surfing in the middle. You just have to pick one or pick the other.
What are the type of gigs that a voice actor can get, especially at the beginning? Like when you said when you first got on and share the tool names if you can, the website that you used to find your first gigs. What are all I'm sure there's plenty of things that I'm not thinking of that a voice actor handles. What are those? What are they?
Yeah, it's literally everything where you hear the voice but don't see the face. And even sometimes you'll see the face and don't really realize it. I heard this the other day, so I'll say it. The show Downton Abbey. Those actors overdub themselves like 90% of the time.
Really?
Because that building that they were in was so not good acoustically that they would shoot the scenes, put them all together, then all of them would go and overdub themselves. They were all doing their own voiceovers.
Wow.
I know, it shows, once you learn that, you're like, wow, those actors are really good. But so the first job I ever got, I don't want to say the name of the platform because it's a bad word in the voiceover industry and it's not a good place to go to get work, especially now. 10 years ago, it was better. Right now, it's not so great. But I was paid a small amount of money by a Canadian metal band to say, prepare the syringe. That was my first job. And when that happened, I was like, I love this. I'm in this for life. But for the most part, there's a lot of commercial work and a lot of sort of like what considered to be low end of the market. It's actually, for the time you spend, it's great pay. Kind of commercial work where you might make $200 or $300 to do like a 30 to 60 second explainer video for just some company. And it's just to stick on their website. And they might have products and you can do product explainers or product tutorials. And if you become easy to work with and these people make these videos for their social or for their website, they'll keep hiring you. And that's ultimately where lots of people make a career over time, is finding people like that give them once a quarter, give them a little 1-minute explainer video or training video or something like that. There's tons of that kind of work. E-learning is an enormous industry worldwide where if you can tap into it and find clients, you'll work forever. It's not the most glamorous. It's not the highest paying. You can absolutely, if you hustle and find the clients and work the clients and do the jobs, you can make a quality living reading that stuff. which is pretty interesting, actually. One of the coolest aspects of this job that nobody realizes right off the bat is that because you're reading for a living, you learn a lot about a lot. And it's sort of a tangent here, but one of the best things, one of the things that you can do for yourself if you're becoming a voice actor, and this was actually taught to me by one of my first coaches who, it's a bit of a name drop here, but she's really one of the top animation people. Her name is Debbie Derryberry. And if you know the show Jimmy Neutron, she was Jimmy Neutron. And if you look her up on IMDb, she's hundreds of credits. She's amazing. But she told me this, and I was right around the time when I was starting to discover it myself, which is don't necessarily go for the stuff you want in voiceover. Go for where the market chooses you. So my advice for someone getting started is audition for absolutely everything. Even if you think you just can't do it. If it says Korean accent, get on the internet and learn how to do a Korean accent. You're probably not going to get the gig because some Korean person will get it. But you're stretching your skills. You're trying new things, and you're just going for the uncomfortable situation. Like try anything and everything. And then eventually you'll start getting hired in sectors. Your voice will just lend itself to a particular area. So for me, I play wacky video game characters, and I do like engineering e-learnings. And then I also work in the outdoor space as well. So people that have selling a new bass boat or fishing pole or something like that, I sound like that guy. And then I get a smattering of all different sorts of things after that. But in seeing where I got hired, then I after some years, started to adjust what I would audition for. Because there was also some things where I was certain I was the guy, and I never got hired for it. Realizing that things like movie trailers and radio promo and that kind of stuff, where I thought I had that voice, but they're very specific specialties, and you have to truly train and practice to be that. And you have to go for it like that's the part of voiceover where I'm going to make my career. And I wanted to be a bit more broad spectrum than that. So I let go of some of those things and accepted some of these other things where I was like, okay, I didn't think I'd do this, but fine. And, sort of whatever pays the bills. It's all fun, no matter what, as far as I'm concerned. And another thing that I say that not everyone agrees with me with, but I think it's all character acting. When I'm reading an engineering e-learning, I'm not me reading it. I'm the engineering professor in my mind. I have a character for that stuff. And when I read for the outdoor stuff, I have a handful of characters depending on what the product is and the regions that they're going for. Having these little go-to voices to try to fit the marketplace. I think I went on a tangent. I don't remember where we started.
No, that's good. No, I'm curious. You mentioned that with these jobs that it sounds like everything you audition for. So does it ever get to a point where people call you, or companies or agencies, whoever it is that's in need of voiceover work, they call you and say, hey, you're the guy, we want you? Or is it always, hey, we think you're the guy, we've got 10 other, however many other people we're auditioning for this part, can you come on in and audition? Does it ever get to that point where they come to you, or is it always auditioned?
The answer is yes and yes. Sometimes, so the way I do it, and this is the way most people do it, is I do some of the pay-to-plays, which is things like voices.com or Voice123 or Bidalgo or VO Planet. There's lots of them out there now, but there's ones that are obviously the ones that are the top dogs. And from there, you can find long-term clients. Once you get to then I have my own website, which is djrvoiceover.com. And it's SEO'd well enough that I do have people just showing up in my inbox saying, hey, we've got a gig, do you want to do it? Or we have a gig and we're going to send a few different takes to the client, meaning 5 different actors or something like that. And one of them gets picked. So it might be like an instant shortlist situation as opposed to here's 100. And when you have enough of a track record and enough skill and you have the right demos, particularly a good commercial demo, because that's like your business card. Even if you're in animation, you still have a good commercial demo. Then you can start getting agents. And having a handful of agents means that they send you auditions too. They just are for, it might be like literally for a Super Bowl ad or something like that. It's for the higher profile, larger client, larger pay scale type of work. Once again, though, you're auditioning against the all-star team. So, you give your best chops, but also these days understand that they have a voice that's in their head that they want to try to match. And so you either match it or you don't. One of the cool aspects of this is there's a lot of rejection, but it's not personal. It's just, we want a guy who sounds like that guy, not like you. It's like,
Right.
no big deal. Wasn't
Yeah.
about you personally, how you are, or even your acting skills. It was just you didn't sound right. So fine, move on.
Yeah.
So those are the normal ways of getting the work. And then what's also worked great for me is just getting out there and shaking hands with people. You don't reach as many people as you can, say, trying to do that on LinkedIn, or depending on if you're going for e-learnings or something, LinkedIn's a good spot. If you're going for animations or something, then you might go on a different social, maybe on TikTok or Instagram or something, and just keep posting lots of clips of you doing character acting. I just joined a referral partnership group here in town, and almost half of them hired me for something.
Wow.
Which is pretty amazing return on as far as the touch points went. But the truth is, people hire their friends. Try to make friends with people. Try to have a positive and consistent social presence. Keep it relevant without being preachy or salesy. And then it's just rinse and repeat every day. Try to hit your numbers. Eventually, over time, you'll build up enough repeat clients where you'll sustain a career.
So that brings me to my question of earning potential as a voiceover actor. Are there any like retainer gigs, or do you, like you said, you find companies, or like with you with being Toy Freddy or any of the video game animations you're in, are there like contracts involved where you're guaranteed a certain amount of income? Do you have retainers with certain companies, or is it more of, hey, Darren's our guy, but we might need you twice a year? What does that look like? And then how do you fill the gaps in between, if there are any?
So it breaks down like this. It's mostly work for hire. So when you're doing the stuff for people's websites and their socials and that kind of stuff, you're just getting, I think of myself kind of like the plumber. I'm a craftsman. I create audio clips and I sell them. And so it's just a one-stop job. They say, here's the script, record it, send it back. I send them an invoice, they pay. That's how that goes. And so you just want to have as many of those as you can from people that want to come back and buy your product whenever they need it. There are instances where retainers happen. It tends to be at the very high level, and they're pretty rare even at that level, where you're like the guy that does the Home Depot narrations, all those like in-store clips and their advertisements and stuff. Those are real holy grail dream gigs, and they're rare. What's more common is, since you're basically, when you record a clip, the actor owns it unless the person buys it out from you outright, and that will be in the contract. And there's a contract every single time you do any type of voiceover. You might be super simple, just here's stating it in an email. It might be something that's multiple pages saying stipulations about who owns what, and as well as NDAs and that kind of stuff. But let's say you do a national radio advertisement for whatever company, and they will pay you for the session. So in other words, they pay you for your time to craft the audio to their specifications, and they'll be there directing you, and there'll probably be a little team that asks you to jump through all the hoops that they can think of. And that's usually pretty fun. And they'll pay you a certain hourly for that time. And then after that, there's the licensing. And that depends on the size of the market and what the medium is. So if you have a national television advertisement, they'll pay you a certain amount for a year. And that is usually in the $3,000 to $5,000 range for that license. That if they use it for the second year, they'll pay you that again. And sometimes it'll even be that plus 10%. Years ago, that happened more. These days, media is made and consumed so quickly, it doesn't happen as often that people repeat campaigns. But it's still there. It's like every contract that I get from my agents says usage for this amount of time and renewable at. If you're good at that stuff, you can make a decent living, but there's very few people that only make their living off of high-end commercial work. And it's for a couple of reasons. One is everybody wants it, so it's super competitive. The other is that clients want to have variety. And then there's also, if you do an ad for Coke, you can't do an ad for Pepsi. So there's exclusivity stuff, and they always ask, do you have exclusivity in these markets? If you do an ad for a computer company, you're not doing another ad for another computer company until that first ad has stopped running. So you have to be careful about that stuff. Most people I know that are making real top tier income, they have hybrid type of client lists. They're great at auditioning, so they win the big gigs. They also are good at the hustle, so they have lots of the smaller gigs, and they get in with good clients that keep sending them stuff. They have a well SEO'd website and excellent demos, and so they're just students at all the categories to be able to attract more clients, and they've been at it for a long time. It's just like any other investment in life. Time is your absolute best friend in terms of building a career. But to answer your question about how much money you can make, there is a woman whose name, I'll say her name. Her name is Karin Gilfrey. She's a very top tier actor, as well as one of the founding and lead members of a group called NAVA, which is the National Association of Voice Actors. And they're doing a lot as far as like the protections against AI and being able to help voice actors do things like get health insurance. And they really advocate for voice actors and the voice industry. And they're amazing. But I took a workshop of hers a couple years ago at a conference. And she and a small group of other people had sent out a questionnaire the year or so before. And I believe they do it every year now. Roughly 1,000, 1,200 voice actors get the information or get the questionnaire, and it's all anonymous. And they collect data from it, data that they've proven to be repeatable and scalable. And what it basically boils down to is this. 54% of voice actors make $8,000 or less every year. So let that one sink in for a second. Means hard to get into. A lot of these people give it a try. They realize it's not the easy money that they thought, and they drop out. That's really it. There's a big attrition rate. 25% of the whole pie make over $150,000 a year. And to be in the upper and mid six figures, you're well into the single digits of percentage. Because you have to be great at a bunch of things to be able to get there. You have to be a great actor, a great auditioner. You have to have your hustle together. You have to be able to manage your time super well. You have to be able to deliver consistently. And while you're doing all the gigs, you also have to be able to get in all your auditions. And so it means that you have incredible technique and stamina to be able to do the whole job all day. So it's like a lot of other jobs. If you want to be in the elite sector, you gotta be super dedicated, and super awesome. There's no just doing it halfway. However, doing it halfway, which is totally viable in the world of voiceover, you can make an extra $25,000, $50,000 a year working part-time along with some other source of income. And which is also, everyone says this, and it's true. You need to have another source of income, A, to start this career, because it takes a while to build your business, typically 6 years, which is like any other small business. And you have to be able to account for the times when the market's just going against you, because it's a business that's based on trends. And when I first started, I was on trend. So I was like, yeah, this is the greatest job in the world. And I just show up every day and print money. And starting around the beginning of the pandemic and going for the next few years, especially 2023, I couldn't buy a job. It was to a point where I was like, have I lost my touch? Is there something wrong with my audio quality? Did I just somehow screw up? And fortunately, I've been in an accountability group, a voiceover accountability group for a few years. And I highly recommend them to people, and get into it with people that are in your category of voice actor. So not meaning your genre, but where you are in your career. So if you're a beginner, get in with other beginners. If you're in the middle, then get in with other people that are in the middle, because then you can relate to each other and you can support each other. So I've been in with a number of mid-tier actors, and they were there to tell me, hey man, you're okay. You're okay. Everything you're doing is just fine, but your demographic is currently not de rigueur. You're just not the guy right now. And as I started listening to radio and stuff, as far as commercial went, I was like, oh yeah, I don't hear me anywhere. And so I'm like, okay. So I pivoted. I started looking for more of the e-learning work, which is very hidden from the general public. They don't put up auditions for those things typically. You have to really get on the internet and hustle to try to find them. And so I started looking more for that. I also just backed up a little bit and thought, I'm just going to do something different. And I spent most of 2023 and 24 writing and recording a solo album of music. That's always been my love. And I was like, well, if I can't, there's no sense in beating myself up to not work. If that's the case, then I'm going to do something here that can actually feed my soul. And I have a backup job. Like I mentioned before, I own my house and I made one floor of it an Airbnb. So that's a steady income that doesn't require a lot of my hours, and I have someone that comes and cleans it, and that basically pays my bills. So it's my backup for when things go sideways. So I was able to be like, all right, tighten my belt for this year, and I'm just going to do this other thing. Interestingly enough, I made videos for that music, and that actually got me some clients. As I started putting that stuff up, video producers were like, this guy knows the whole thing. He gets it. He's one of us. Some people were just like, I just like your music, so we're going to hire you. That happened twice.
There you go.
So sometimes it's like what feels like a red light can turn into a green light later, to quote Matthew McConaughey. I actually really like that book. It's a great audiobook too, by the way. And by following my heart in that respect and being like, all right, I just got to wait out this little storm, I can still do it in a way that's fun. And so I did, and it's worked out since then. And then as things have turned back around a little bit and I'm winning more auditions and getting the longer term clientele again, everything feels like more or less like it used to, except for the fact that I'm just a lot better at this than I was 10 years ago.
Yeah. You mentioned AI a little bit ago. Is AI threatening your industry or your profession? What is AI doing for you guys?
We could talk the whole time about that if you wanted to, but ultimately, a few years ago, everybody was panicked because the technology moves so fast. These days, people aren't so panicked. And one of the main reasons, like one of the guys in my accountability group does audio description. If you don't know what that is, it's one of the audio selections if you're watching a Netflix show. And it says AD. It's basically for people that are vision impaired to be able to hear descriptions of what's going on the screen. And so he has just this great voice and pacing and personality for that kind of work. And they tried it with AI, thinking this is a perfect place to use AI voices. And their audience immediately objected to it. They're like, we like hearing the personality of the person. We like knowing that there's someone there talking to us, guiding us through this thing. We don't want the robot.
Right.
Because once you can tell that it's a AI voice, you can't not hear it anymore. So like for an audiobook, I have a friend who actually made an audiobook, and he was asking me like how he could set it up so he could read it and whatever, and I was helping him with that, and then he ended up just going with the AI version. I hate saying it, but after a few minutes of it, it just sounds like a robot telling the thing. And there's certain aspects of inflection and not understanding idioms or even emotion where it stops being cool because there's no human connection in it. That being said, I've made AI voices, and for certain parts of our world, AI voices are really like the thing. It's helped our industry in one way, in the sense that video producers would have to hire someone to do a scratch track, to just read the narration so they could edit all of the stuff to it. all the clips to that narration. Now they can actually get an AI voice of the actor they want, use the AI voice to time everything out and be able to play with the editing and all that stuff without having to have a lot of back and forth with the actor. And it also saves them some money. And then when it finally comes down to doing the final, they say, here's this with exact timing, just reproduce it. And even here's the images that you can look at. And even cooler than that is if I mispronounce a word, forget a sentence, something like that, overlook it, they can actually go back to the AI voice and patch it with that. And that gets the job done. They don't have to waste time trying to catch up with me. And I don't have to go through some of the audio surgery to be able to make that sound seamless, to do that patch seamlessly. And that keeps the whole system rolling, which makes everyone more efficient. And that means that they can get on to their next gig, which means they might hire me again the next week.
Yeah.
There's that aspect. There's also things like we're getting to where everything has a robot. Like our car will talk to us. They're developing things that are like a robot butler kind of thing. Or really in healthcare, there's a whole bunch of little bedside assistant machines that are coming out now. And even for things that are like elder care, where they don't have enough staff to be there to talk to people, these little robots can come and play cards, or just talk to the person. And that's a place where you just can't have a real person saying every single word. So you make an AI model off of an actor's voice, and they do get residuals for being that voice. They can be some insanely high-paying jobs. They're a lot of work, and they're very hard to do because you'll record for weeks sometimes, certainly for days, and you have to sound the same on the last day as you did on the first day. So being able to manage your voice over days, different weather, different sleep pattern, what you ate, all that stuff, which can affect your voice, you are good enough to where you can do it and sound the same the whole time, as well as maintaining all the inflections and nuances and all that stuff. But so in that regard, yeah, there's actually some real benefit. Thanks to Nava, they're getting legislation passed that allows us to actually own our voice, likeness, and image, which we currently don't do. Anyone can take our voice and make a voice out of it, make like an AI model out of it. And there's not really any legislation around that, which is pretty scary. The implications of that are literally frightening. But because of it being literally frightening, there's a lot of bipartisan support. So this stuff is going to be passed soon.
Good.
Yeah, pretty neat. And this is just from some voice actors going, we don't like the fact that some of these studios want to take our voices and just repeat them without hiring us again. That's not cool. And so Nava has a contract writer that I stick on absolutely everything I do now that just says, you don't get to make an AI model out of this. And everyone goes, oh yeah, no worries. We were never going to do that. And it's really cool that people are becoming more aware of it. They're becoming more aware that humans are really more comfortable listening to a real human, so there's no like easy way out. And people are really embracing it and wanting to hire each other. And then as actors, we have to act that much more to prove our humanness. And I see it, if I do 20 auditions in a day, 10 of them will say, no AI voices, no robotic sounding voices, no monotone voices. Great. Then let's bring out some personality and let's bring some more personality and color and flair into the world. I mean, ultimately, I see the little squeeze that was put on us over the last few years turning into a better world because of people rejecting AI and embracing AI in certain ways. But we're not being replaced by AI. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I think that what she said earlier was so true across many industries. Like, I'm really close in with the copywriting community, and when AI first kind of came on the scene with ChatGPT, now first of all, AI has been around for 10 plus years. It's just nobody really knew it, or it wasn't as complex as it is now. But really, AI is a fantastic automation tool. It is an advanced automation tool. And in the near future, there will be positions that get eliminated by using AI. However, the jobs like yours that require human intuition and nuance, I'm glad to see that already within a few years of AI booming out in the marketplace, that people are realizing and industries are realizing that the human aspect of this is still greatly desired by the consumers of voiceover or copywriting or insert industry here. Because you're right, like when people are now at the point where most people can recognize what's AI and what isn't to a certain degree,
Hmm.
but especially in your line of work, like people know pretty quick when something's been dubbed with AI.
Right
And we
away.
don't like it. In this case, we don't like the robots, but we do love it when AI can help us advance with our editing, or like you said, be able to splice in for a word or two rather than having to redo a whole track or whatever it
Hmm.
might be. So I think it's like you said, it's going to be a much better help than a hindrance, and it's proving that out now.
Indeed. And it's also been cool in the sense, I mean, I love it and hate it at the same time, but we've probably all listened to some little video or reel or something that has a voice saying what the narration is, but that's a no-pay job. So fine, let the robot do it. That's cool. And it's actually freeing up a voice actor to go get some paid work. And you're not wasting the time of even beginners. It's like people don't have to drudge away at doing things like that in order to cut their teeth in the industry. They can actually do things that are much more promoting their skills, which is what you
Yeah.
need to be doing at the beginning, not just drudgery work. You need to get better at what you're doing. So you need to practice across the board. And so that's fine. I think taking away that lowest tier, which is really all that I've seen AI do in the industry, and it doesn't even remove work. It just inserts itself into the zero pay tier.
Which is fine. It collects the scraps at the bottom so that, like you said, the voiceover actors, even the new ones, have more ability to go accept jobs at the next tier that are not trash, right?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Um, and so I love that. And it's also lighting a little fire under our butts to be better actors, too. And I love that as well. I think anything that makes us all have to try a little harder as artists just makes everything better.
Sounds like a net positive.
Seriously, it really is. And
Awesome.
even on top of that, too, when everyone thought, oh, this is going to drive prices down, I got to say, this year it seems like there's more higher paid work than there has been in a long time. So,
Right.
and that might just be my microcosm. But it sure seems like I'm auditioning for more better paid stuff than I have in the last 5 years.
Good, good. All right. So it sounds like now's a good time to, if you've been thinking about it, starting a side gig or starting a business in voiceover, there's definitely opportunities out there. And Darren, like you said, don't forget about getting trained. Like you think about it, what NFL quarterback out there doesn't have a quarterback's coach? They don't have a head coach. Everybody has a coach. Be able to go
Oh,
find someone who's at where you want to be and learn from them, right?
yeah,
And that
sure.
applies
And
across the spectrum.
yeah, and if you look at people that are real specialists, just to pull a name out of a hat, Celine Dion would go on tour and she'd have her voice coach with her to help her warm up every day. It's like
Mhm.
people at the top tier, and to use sports again, it's like every relief pitcher is out there in the bullpen with the pitching coach standing there. Every pro golfer is there at the driving range with their coach on the day of the big game. It's like you always need to be refining what you do. And on top of that, a mentor had said, it's before they became a mentor of mine. I just saw them in a webinar, but it was in the very early stages of my career. And he said, the day that you don't have anything new to learn in this business is the day you should quit, because there's way more to learn than anyone can do in a lifetime. So if you're bored in one area, fine, move on to something else. It's like, I know a guy who's just one of the top commercial guys. And I'm going for character stuff now. I've never really done that. And I've seen him posting things like he did like what I would consider to be like a little character gig. And I was like, way to go. You're like working your way up the ladder. And this is a guy who like makes low seven figures. And I was like, good for you. And awesomely humbling to see this person that's like a real rock star being like, I'm going to try the new thing and I don't mind starting at the bottom and figuring it out as I learn all the stuff. And that's super cool. And here's the icing on the cake for being a voice actor is the voice acting community is just awesome. Just the nicest, most supportive people in a business that's very competitive, but we really don't compete with each other. It's competitive in the sense that you just have to get out there and do a lot to be able to make a living. You're competing with your yesterday self. You're just trying to get that one more than you did before. Meet your numbers. Try to do it all while taking care of yourself. And everyone else, even though they're going for the same gigs as you, everyone's cheering each other on. And there's not many industries where you get that.
Yeah. It sounds like this is a great avenue for starting up a business, especially here in 2025. Sounds like there's ample opportunity, a great community to learn from. So, Darren, I think we could keep going much longer, but you've shared so much information with us today. I'm sure you've inspired some listeners to look at voiceover as a possible avenue for their entrepreneurial endeavor. I want to make sure that anybody out there listening today, if they want to reach out to you, if maybe they have voiceover work for you, they fell in love with your awesome voice here,
With
or
my
if
dulcet tones here in this interview.
that's right. There you go. There you go. Or if they just want to get connected with you and follow your journey, what are the best ways for them to do that?
My name gets you there. Darren Roebuck, DarrenRoebuck. There's not too many Darren Roebucks in the world, so I usually come up high on a Google search. My brand name is DJR Voiceover, and djrvoiceover.com takes you to my website, which is the best place to hear my demos and even to contact me. There's a little contact module on there. And then you can hear what I do and read a little bit about me if you want. And there's links to all the social stuff from there. But even if you just Google my name, you'll find me on YouTube, you'll find me on Instagram, Facebook, etc.
Awesome. Darren, thank you so much for joining me today, man. This has been a real pleasure.
Thanks for having me on. It was fun for me too.